and welcome to Secrets of a B2B Marketeer. Today I have on the show with us Mr. Deepu Nair, a Senior Account Director from LinkedIn. Welcome to the show, Deepu.
Hi, Benita. Thank you so much for having me over.
It's absolutely our pleasure. So Deepu and I have known each other for a while, I think a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited that he accepted very, very graciously to be on this show. So I genuinely wanted to thank you for that, Deepu.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here talking to you as well. So it goes both ways.
I think more than anything, I want our listeners to benefit out of our conversation. And we've had some very interesting conversations. So I think this podcast is also a good way for our listeners to benefit from that.
Right.
But before we deep dive and get into everything, I would like you to introduce yourself, because I don't think I can do justice to this vast, beautiful experience that you have. You've done some fabulous work, and I certainly wouldn't want to undermine it. So why don't you take over and tell us a little more about yourself?
Thank you. You've been very kind. Well, I've been in the world of sales from the beginning. I started doing small odd jobs during my college days, starting from selling phones to be a part of an event circle where we used to spend time after college and do some promotional activities and make some extra pocket money. From there to working in the home loans division as a sales executive, trying to fetch loans, help people with home loans. So from then onwards, my journey has been, I would say, in all different spheres which I didn't have control on. I had interest towards biology and I joined biotech. That was kind of the talk of the town topic then, and I went and learned that, then did my MBA and landed up in the hotel industry. And very often I ask this question, what am I doing in life? I've learned something else and I'm doing something else altogether. And at every point in time today, when I go back and I see there is some form of great learning that has helped me to do better or has given me a different perspective. Just getting back from the hospitality space, I realized that this has been a great learning. I got an opportunity to speak to very senior leaders at the early stage of my career, helped me build that confidence, helped me grow myself as an individual. That kind of led to a great executive presence, which helps me in today's role.
Sure.
And when I was trying to look at other options, media came into my plate, and been very, very fortunate to work with some fantastic brands. I got an opportunity to represent National Geographic Channel, Fox Life, Star Movies. I launched Star Movies Select, a very premium niche English movie channel in South, and post that was handpicked by Viacom18 to launch Colors Infinity and English GC channel in South again. That led to another opportunity with Ep2. I was leading sales for Ep2 in South and Warner Bros. And when I was doing really well, I kind of somewhere was really hungry to do or something more or go to the next level. And that's when LinkedIn happened to me. And LinkedIn at that point in time was looking for somebody who could have this experience, somebody who probably had a little bit of understanding on all different industries, because that's what I do today. I consult brands. I try and understand what really works well for them and probably give my solutions around it. But I would say probably one of the best learnings that I ever had, apart from the experiences that I have with different industries, is the small entrepreneurial journey that I and my brother started in 2016. What we did there was we, just like you, as brave as you are, Benita, I understand it's not an easy journey of starting something of your own, but we did it in a small way. We started growing mushrooms, and from there we created two products. One was a prototype, and the second one was a launch, which was a DIY kit where you can grow mushrooms at home.
Very fascinating.
Yeah, that's my story.
Very fascinating. I think, when was this mushroom story?
This is 2016 to 18. And yeah, we
Early for
both.
its time.
Sorry?
Early for your time.
I would say it's never early. I feel the sooner people get into this, there is a great form of learning, and look at people around such smart individuals starting up as early as possible. I think the amount of learning that one could imbibe in this space, I'm sure you'd agree to it because you've been an entrepreneur for a while. The
9 years now.
challenges that comes by, right?
So this is the story of the professional side of Deepu, but who is Deepu on the personal side?
I feel there's a contrast there. At the workplace, I'm pretty much uh, very aggressive or harsh to myself. I have certain standards which I believe in, and I work towards it. At home, I think I'm the most laziest person that one would ever find, and my wife would agree to that. I'm fun-loving both sides, but I'm very relaxed. I try and do things what really works for me.
I see
But
that about you. I totally see that about you.
yeah, and I have two wonderful children, and I have one wife. So, so we're pretty much. My daughter is a year old, and my son is 4.5. So our hands are full at the moment. But yeah, apart from that, I pretty much love to travel. I hit the gym at least 3 to 4 days a week, and that's all. That's my life. It's simple.
I like that. So, like most entrepreneurs and most of our listeners, you wear multiple hats, right? You're a father, you're a husband, you're also at this huge, I'm sure, very highly responsible job that's very demanding. So, tell me a little more about that role. As senior account director, certainly sounds like a very fancy title, but what does that entail, especially at a place like LinkedIn?
I think this comes with great responsibility as well, as we speak to marketers and talent acquisition heads on a day-to-day basis. And my job revolves around consulting them and help them grow on the platform and meanwhile achieve their goals. So I spend most of my time trying to understand the problem that they are currently facing and try to resolve or try to give them a direction that's going to help them using LinkedIn as a tool. And
Sure.
there is so much more that one can do, and the scope is immense. So on a day-to-day basis, it depends. We try and speak to founders if it's a startup segment that we're talking to, or so the kind of books that I handle is a mix of all, and is the first line of accounts that we have conversations with, and then that helps to the growth story.
Okay. So from what I've heard, I think that means you're really up hands-on and are close to a wide segment of, say, industries.
Correct.
And I think you have a very unique advantage that most of us marketers would, well, at least give our left hand for, if not more, which is you see trends.
Yeah.
See them before they hit us. So 2023, what trends are you foreseeing that probably my listeners and I could benefit from? I think ChatGPT, yes. I think we've spoken about it, but I'd like to hear your take on ChatGPT, but also beyond ChatGPT.
Absolutely. I think you would have seen so much of discussions going on ChatGPT and the AI space.
Yeah.
And interestingly, it is here to stay, and it is going to help and benefit a lot of us in various different formats.
Yeah.
I think the way that we probably look at it is how do we effectively use the power of tools like these and enhance our performance around. So that could be, say, if I probably talk about from my client's perspective, how do I ensure that they could benefit more out of it? They could probably save a lot more time and use and invest those time effectively elsewhere. And there are a hell lot of tools. I, in fact, got immersed in it with spending so much of time trying to use these tools myself. Was intrigued in this entire topic, and I learned a lot, and I could clearly see that these tools can be, if used in the right way, can benefit folks. So that's one take on AI and the chat GPT space. Talking about trends, I feel I do see there is a entire shift in the way you probably look at sales cycles and involvement of key stakeholders in the entire um, purchasing decision. Now, a marketer today will have to sell internally a lot more things and probably have to involve a CFO. So, yes, we had marketing budgets that's been assigned, but today, because of the macroeconomic conditions, the discussion of ROI is getting a little bit more stringent. So now there are two aspects to it. How does a sales guy look at it, and how would a marketer look at it? And what I would probably define is a sales professional needs to understand where and what the journey is for the marketer, because that's your decision maker. But today it's not only him, there are other stakeholders. So are you giving and fueling the right information that's required that will enable this marketer to have this conversation internally? That's number one. Secondly, how would a marketer look at it? Now, a marketer needs to ensure that he's explaining the reason why the spends are going up. It's not spends, it's a growth investment. And it starts with terminologies like these, right? Yes. And once we understand this entire journey, it becomes easier for that entire needle to move ahead. Yeah. Now, the same conversation can be put across in terms of how do I attract my customers. In the entire search of finding out the right audience, it's also important to engage with key stakeholders around. Correct. A major trend that I have seen.
Yeah. I think it also, maybe I'm biased, at least within my client pool, I'm seeing that marketing and sales, there used to be this wall, invisible wall. I don't have a better terminology or analogy for it, but I felt that, they were working in their own silos, not realizing that unless they worked hand in hand, both would fail miserably. So it ended up being a competition. In my circles, I'm seeing those walls coming down to a small extent. It's a long way to go, but I'm seeing that process begin. Is this just a certain industry and segment, or are you seeing this happen more across the board?
I've seen this happening more across the board. And I've also seen very smart marketers using or solving this problem in a nice way. And what they do is they are actually part of few client meetings. They are up there meeting their customers more often rather than just organizing events and giving away leads. I feel that is very important because active participation of a marketer, understanding the pulse of what is required and looking at through a sales lens is very important. And that leads to a conversation talking about, as a marketer, am I satisfied with an MQL, or am I vested in this entire piece to ensure that there is a closure that has happened, or until unless that money is banked?
I agree. And I think if we start looking at it from this lens, proving ROI becomes so much easier.
Absolutely.
Today, everybody's big challenge, especially as a marketer, is how do you prove ROI?
Right.
And I think the solution to me is as simple as this: just be a part of the sales process from the very beginning, and then you can prove your ROI.
You just hit it right, Benita, because when you said about being part of the entire process, that talks about entirely to a brand to demand strategy.
Correct.
While there are times where we've seen marketers who are looking for short wins and directly get into a conversation to have lead generation campaigns and just looking at results that's coming up.
Correct.
I feel another trend that is specifically and absolutely visible is instead of lead generation, let's focus on demand generation. And though it sounds similar, but it's very different.
Yes. Where it's we ensure that enlarging the pie.
Absolutely. It's actually ensuring that you're creating the demand,
Correct. Correct.
and that demand is nurtured and leads to right conversations, which would get you more specific quality leads.
Correct.
It's never a number, it's always quality, right? And the sooner marketers and business leaders get into this mode, I think they would see success coming their way more quickly.
Absolutely. I agree. Which kind of leads me to a very, it may seem like off the cuff, but it makes me think, what are these, since you're seeing across sectors, what are some of examples that you see people are doing? I would say maybe unique, or at the very least, something different that's giving them some success compared to, because in my opinion, doing what everybody is doing is not going to bring you success.
Right.
If anything, doing something different is the way to get a little ahead of the curve. So are you seeing some such, maybe you have examples or case studies that you can share with us?
Yeah, sure. Benita, luckily now with LinkedIn, I'm going to complete 4 years very soon, and
Yeah.
had opportunity to at least interact with 1,000+ marketers in all different segments and industries. There have been a couple of my own clients who have found some great success on the platform, and we in fact created a global case study around it.
Okay.
So there is this organization named Eka. It's called Eka Software earlier, and they had to go to a rebranding. Because Eka is one. It's a Sanskrit word. So, so entire branding exercise. So they want to do that entire rebranding exercise and have that conversation around. And this leads to one of the bits, which is a low-hanging fruit. That is, we very often undermine the power of your organic reach. Right. Now, if you look at any medium-sized organizations, you would probably, if it's 500+ employees, each employee is actually an available individual who has his own network.
Yes.
Right. But now imagine this, you have your organic power, and then you add on with some paid media. That means you're reaching out of a circle which is relevant to you. And the benefit that you get is immense. You're not only talking about marketing here, you're not only talking about reaching to your audience, but tomorrow you're going to be an employer of choice. And that helps in your growth journey, because when you grow, you're not only getting revenue, you're not only growing as an organization. To help that growth happen, you need to have people as well, and people make that difference. So getting the right person on that job and ensuring that you have that entire visibility is very important, right? So what Eka did was basically they ensured they used employee advocacy in the best possible way. There was a very detailed conversation and an action plan that we held with the senior leadership team. Sorry, we folded into two major layers. One is thought leadership content, where we had a complete strategy of how the senior leaders are going to engage on the platform. And not just one platform, but other platforms, but predominantly we can talk LinkedIn here because that's where the maximum growth happened.
Yeah.
Then the second level conversation is about creating that buzz and excitement around the employees about this entire rebranding exercise. And then create a small story leg on how and what they would want to do moving forward. Right. There were small bites and discussion done with the customers as well. So there was another form of content that was readily made. Now, whatever was present organically was ensured, put in right tagging, hashtag, people, reposting, so engagement goes up.
Yeah.
Using different forms of tools in an effective manner. That could be a LinkedIn Live, or could be using LinkedIn events, help them create or maximize that value proposition that people wanted to showcase on. And then using the paid media very effectively to a segment that was important to them. That included even the existing customers, that also included future prospects, that also included a community that was vested, that could be probable future investors or very senior folks which they would want to have conversations with. And we have a case study on that. In fact, if you don't, I'm happy to share that through a link. Uh, they did receive around close to 8 million plus impressions on that one particular day.
That's organic.
A mix of organic and paid, but that combination helped them get wherever they would want to. And they saw a spike of around 10% of followership going up within that small period.
Okay, I would absolutely love to chase you up on this link.
Sure.
And we'll make it a part of the podcast description, so our listeners can
Absolutely.
on that link.
It's a global LinkedIn case study, so it's amazing for people to furthermore read about it and learn.
Sounds fantastic.
I have one more if you would want to hear on the talent side, which I feel is very interesting, and if viewers would want to learn from it.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I like my team. We're working very closely with ShareChat. I'm sure you would be aware of ShareChat.
Yes.
The vernacular space and creating content there. And very interestingly, one of the challenges that they had was, now, say in this entire B2B world, it's like we spoke about, it's very difficult to get right talent, and getting talent in the tech space is the most competitive area that you would look at it, right? Like you have startups going after them, have large organizations going after them. And I once happened to speak to a recruiter, and he told me, listen, at any point in time, probably not in the current days, because there are a lot of the current situation, but I'm talking about a couple of years back. A techie would have at least 1 or 2 job already ready with him.
Yeah.
Is negotiating.
Yeah.
You would also experienced it whenever you plan to hire in your organization. So what it did was very interesting. Every month, and that's one key element that I look at B2B marketers doing it right, is being consistent. Consistently every month they were hosting events and virtual events.
For the employees.
Not for the employees. In fact, they were hosting LinkedIn events for people in the tech space with a particular skill set.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. And what they did there was they used to get a thought leader in this space. So since I would probably categorize them in the social media segment, they used to get a senior director from engineering, from Pinterest or from Google, and regularly have conversations with about what's happening in this space, how and what can be done. Say I'm an aspiring techie who has 1, 2, 3 skill sets, could be Python, Java. How do I foresee what are the other things that I need to learn in future so that I become more successful? Probably what else is required, since we are talking about ChatGPT, there is a lot more that comes by, right? Yep. So what they try to do is they try to give value to people. And since it's a small community in the building, community in the making, that community slowly gets bigger and bigger. And nowhere they are asking you to apply or anything of that sort.
Yeah.
But in a very interesting manner, they would probably talk about what's happening in the company, how's the culture, and slowly people started, obviously they get to know a little bit more about the organization at large. I cannot give the numbers as such for obvious reasons, but we got to know internally that it was a great success. There was a lot of warm leads that came their way. In-mail send post that there was sort of higher rate of replies coming in, and whenever there was a job posting being posted, you see good quality techies actually applying for those roles. So
I can see how that can happen.
Absolutely right. It's in a very innovative manner.
Yes. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I couldn't help but think it's not very different from what I'm doing here.
Yeah, looks like. But yeah, so that's how it is with a human connection.
Yes.
Right.
I think B2B sales is, in that sense, end of the day, it's still human to human, but the sales journey is very different from a B2C sales journey.
Right.
I see too many B2B marketers, probably because they come from B2C, they forget this side of it, that the sales cycle is different, and therefore you have to add value. You can't keep pushing your promotional content and discounts and all of that doesn't work anymore. Especially, I don't see it working too much in B2B. It may be
Correct.
the last mile push, but it can't be your first mile push. So,
I
I,
totally agree with you on this.
in fact, that kind of leads me to this is one of the reasons people fail, but what are other reasons B2B marketers in particular are not seeing the success that I'm sure they deserve and want for their own companies? Perhaps a failure story, because I think we learn more from failures than we learn from success.
Yeah, no, the point that you have raised is very, very pertinent, and I see that what happens with brands is they look at short-term wins, and assuming that probably I start with one creative and I start with one format and I start with running campaigns for 4 days and then going back and looking at the cost. I think these are clearly signs that that's not how this world works. And probably I give the best example here is we call it as the 95-5 rule, and it's a very simple format, and this is an actual exercise that was done. What was done here is we asked folks saying that if you would want to change your CRM, what are the names that will come to your mind?
Okay.
And the first thing that they did is they probably wrote names of Salesforce, HubSpot, and all of that. And when we look at the answers, there are more than 728 CRMs available today.
Wow, I did not know that.
So, and much more than that, I'm sure. So, the question here is when I'm actually planning to buy something, there are two things. Obviously, one is recall, but where I'm coming from is only 5% of your entire TAM is in that journey to look out to buy at the moment.
Correct.
While the rest 95 are not your customers for today,
Yes.
but for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Now, in this world, in this B2B space, which is highly competitive, what are we doing to work on that 95% of those folks who can be your customers in future? While yes, you would also want to go after that 5%.
Yeah.
Now, that's a question that probably I gently try to get an answer from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful example. Thank you for sharing that, Deepu, because I think this 95-5, of course, is an interesting way for it to stick. But I hear you. Most of us are making this. I think even for our own businesses, we're in such a hurry to sell. Thank God at Vanilla Skills, this is one thing where I put my foot down and say, you know what? I am not a pushy salesperson. I have received multiple pitches where people say, we will get you the business. And I'm like, no, please don't get me business. For one, pushy sales will spoil more relationships for me than it will build. And that client may come in today, but it won't stick. And in B2B, I think the cost of acquisition of a client can be very high, which I'm sure you hear a lot about at LinkedIn, where they say LinkedIn is an expensive tool, right? I think to me, it sounds like the cost of acquisition is very high, period. But because we use LinkedIn so much, we keep saying, oh, the cost of acquisition at LinkedIn is very high.
Right.
But how do you, I'm sure you hear this all the time, and I'm sorry, I'm one of those people asking you again. But how do you handle that query?
Well, I feel at least I've seen a trend from the last 4 years. The first 2 years I used to hear this very, very often. The last 2 years, people have accepted because we've seen a lot more people using LinkedIn, so they're aware of it's expensive. So the question is not, LinkedIn is expensive, and they're very intriguingly asking, why is it so high? It goes to that level. And I feel, the kind of audience that LinkedIn can provide today which is clearly defined by either job function, job title, seniority, geography, skill sets. I don't think there is any other tool that can effectively help you reach out to that audience. Now,
Yeah.
that is one. The second is LinkedIn is a member first organization. So we give, if you look at even the way the ads are on the platform, it's not on your face. You don't get sponsored emails very often. It's just one in 30 days globally. So we clearly want to ensure that there is member experience that's kept up there, right? Now, that's second. Third is intent of a member who's on LinkedIn. Now, why do people come on LinkedIn? You know, and the analogy that I probably would give is, imagine you have a good Sunday lunch and you get a call saying that, okay, you know what, this is what I would want to do. This is the work that I would want to discuss. The first thing that you would say is, listen, let's talk on Monday, right? So the intent of that individual who's coming on LinkedIn is very clear. It's either I'm going to research, I'm going to learn on something that's happening on the platform. I would want to network with folks, learn from what's happening in my industry, and I'm in that space of working.
Yeah.
When I get a call to whatever engagement that I have with LinkedIn as it's any form of creative, my conversion rates would go higher.
Correct.
Now, so when we look at all these aspects, and when you look at the rate of conversions that happen on LinkedIn, and especially in the B2B world, though the sales cycle is higher, longer, but the ROI is much bigger. Sure. That's when I would probably say LinkedIn is not expensive.
I agree.
I'll probably put it across that LinkedIn is adding a lot more value, and it's not only stopping there. It's going to also take you to the next level where you get an opportunity to talk to many more people who are not your customers today. So it's an investment and not a spend.
Well said. Very well said. I think, at least for our clients, where we do is about 80% of our content or more is organic, and anything between 5 to 20% is paid promotion. To me, it looks like organic is the wind beneath the wings. I'm not saying that you don't need to spend. Of course, there are critical pieces that one would want to bring attention to, because you don't want it's so crucial for your business. You don't want it lost in the clutter. So of course one needs to put money there. But for most part, I feel that organic has to be a large chunk for you. Am I, by saying this, am I doing a disservice to LinkedIn? Am I disservice to you now that you're on the show? Am I preventing sales for LinkedIn?
Well, the way I put it across is, it depends which brand you're talking about. Now, and let me give you an example. Say, let's talk, say, Coca-Cola. Everybody knows Coca-Cola, right? Yeah. Everybody knows Coca-Cola as a brand because you've been consumed it in the past. Now, if I put it through a perspective of talent branding, now, do I know how is it to work with Coke as a company, Coca-Cola as a company? I may not know. I know it as a brand. So there is a huge differentiation between fame, awareness, and how do we probably from there take things forward. So if it's from a talent branding lens, if I have an opportunity tomorrow to join Pepsi and Coca-Cola, and if Coca-Cola has given me enough of more content to consume, to say that this is a great place to work, I have an understanding about the culture, then I would say probably that has either done through an organic or through a paid media, right? Now, talking about paid and organic, you're not doing any disrespect or anything to anyone, so that's completely okay. But where I'm coming from is to ensure that you also need to understand who is your followers, right? And I very often have conversations with founders and marketing leaders saying that let's always not look at number. Let's look at quality over quantity. right?
Sure.
So we do a breakdown on who are my followers today. And if my followers are, if the percentage of my customers are not my followers, and if I'm looking through a marketing lens, then we have a problem.
Yeah.
So once we have that data, and once we have that alignment, now it depends what alignment you have. If you're talking to a marketer, it's a different piece. If it's a talent acquisition head, it's completely different. So whoever I'm talking to, if it's a marketer, and if I see that, okay, listen, out of say 100,000 followers, I don't even have 10,000 followers who are my prospects.
Yeah.
90,000 followers who are students, students plus say software engineers, and I'm a huge tech company. I would say we have a problem.
Yeah.
So then my strategy would change. So yeah, that would be a perspective to look at.
From what you said, my read is that the percentages that I'm talking about, the 80 and 20, may not be the right percentages, but it will still have to be a mix of organic and paid promotion.
Absolutely. That mix is what will help you in the longer run.
Okay.
It cannot only be paid, or it cannot only be organic. You need to have a right mix based on the problem that you would want to solve.
So LinkedIn has this in-house tool that allows one to, I think, well, not in-house tool, I would say the analytics tools. I personally love them. Okay, they are just simply fabulous because they give very micro data, what percentage of your follower is what designation, what industry, what geolocation. So you have all these beautiful bifurcations. So personally, I feel that's a wonderful thing that LinkedIn does. And to me, circling back to our earlier discussion in terms of investment, that itself is a great ROI, right? You don't, and that's an ROI on zero investment.
Right.
Even if I'm not a premium customer, I get this, forget the ads, etc. So this is a beautiful thing. And I truly hope our listeners use those analytics a lot more.
Yes, that it's there, and it helps you understand if there is any spike that's happened in your followers number, and that could be if you're in news, or if you have personally put a content strategy. When I say you as the founder, or your team members, that could, so you can clearly measure why that spike has happened.
Yes, and that's fantastic. One of my clients, and this is a true real life incident. Okay, one of my clients told me there is this invitation to like the page feature that we have. My own company has 250, but I think my client has a limit of 100, and they aren't even consuming those 100. We exhaust 250 like that. So their apprehension is the people don't want to send out the invitation to people in their network. Is that a valid apprehension? What's your take on it?
Well, I think when you have a tool to use, and when you have that option to promote your page and use your network effectively, why not use it? What I would probably do is, if I have that 250 invites, I will try and see that I wisely use those 250 invites among my network.
Yeah.
So people who matter to my business, people who could be influencers and spokesperson for my brand.
Yeah.
Believers in my journey and my brand.
Yeah.
Key stakeholders who are supporting. Why not use it? So I would recommend your customers to use it, because again, it's a free tool. But why to miss out on it?
So like this, there are other myths in our industry, right? This myth, of course, being that if I send it out, I'm, the word that my colleague used was juicing my network already. And I was like, how is that juicing? Just asking them, you have to believe in your own companies.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. If you don't believe, then who would believe?
Who would believe, right? But other than this, what myths do you think, or at least one myth that you would want to debunk on this call?
I think one of the myths which we already discussed, saying that LinkedIn is expensive, I would say it is not expensive. It's a great ROI that comes by. But another bit which I hear I would say once a while is LinkedIn is B2B and not B2C, which I disagree, and I've seen a lot of brands using LinkedIn effectively. What I generally or very strongly have conversations is don't have the same strategy that you would probably have on other platforms versus LinkedIn. Can we stitch our story slightly differently? Can I make it more interesting? Can I connect with my audiences in a different way,
Yeah.
and yet say professional and add value? One example that comes to my mind is when we were consulting with Duroflex. They're into mattresses, and people would think, what would they do on LinkedIn? Generally, probably they would want to hire people. And when I was having conversations with the head of marketing, the entire discussion came up to say that, okay, listen, let's talk about sleep, right? And talk about how important is sleep today. While we all know it's important, but are professionals using or professionals sleeping for 7 hours? Well, I'm included in that. I have a problem with sleep too. But that was the conversation around economic options available. That's the second phase. But the entire discussion was to take enough rest. You're working from home, working from office, but there was this time when we were working from home for a longer duration. So ensuring that now, since we don't have a work and log off and log in time, that has been a small deviation there, ensuring that sleep conversations is going on well. So lot of good brands pick up a particular topic which is relevant to their industry and business, have conversations around it in a very beautiful way, and then connect back to what their brand values are.
I think that's a brilliant example. In fact, now that you mentioned it, I recall a bit, maybe 3 years ago, I saw this whole campaign by Park Avenue, and that was around, women attire, women, the glass ceiling, and that kind of stuff. And it's kind of like what you said, right? They're driving conversations, and then circling it back to their offerings, or whether they be products or services. But I hear you, and I think that's a fantastic one. Not that we do much of B2C, but yeah, I understand that B2C brands often see LinkedIn as, I think it also circles back to assuming that LinkedIn is expensive. And therefore, if your ticket item is very small, the ticket size is small, then it's expensive to generate a lead.
Right.
At least that's the notion there.
No, I get where the marketers also come from, but that's where the story that they need to have on LinkedIn is not going to be based on getting direct business leads at the moment, but it's about having built the right perception about this brand in the minds of your customer, and then moving along with it. So that's why your strategy here will be different. It shouldn't be a same copy paste piece that you're going to do it from other platforms. It could be probably focusing on brand here, and that we spoke about brand to demand, but it could be brand here, understanding the pulse of the audience, having the right conversations. There are brands who talk about sustainability in a very big way.
Yes.
The brand talks about diversity in a strong manner. So there could be different forms of conversations and communications that can be flowed in.
I agree. There's a lot. There are so many issues worth talking about. I heard a podcast where there was a industrial paper cutting, the paper cutter.
Right.
How much can you promote a paper cutter, right? And it's an industrial paper cutter. It's not even your common man's paper cutter. Yeah. And they beautifully created a whole community around their user pool. And they spoke about, if I'm not mistaken, they spoke about challenges of their users, which was just the supervisor, the ones who are just one level above your blue-collared workers, right? Because that's possibly the rung that's there on LinkedIn. The blue-collared guy may or may not be on LinkedIn, but they created this beautiful conversation around lighting, around timings or the working conditions, the hygiene. And I thought that was so brilliant, because how else can you market a cutter to
Right.
an industrial
Right.
usage? So
Right.
that was interesting. But
Yeah, there are a lot of brands that they come with some very innovative manner. I've heard this from a podcast where there was these soups that they sell in a retail outlets,
Mhm.
and there was something written in a small asterisk saying that limited to 12 pieces per person. So you can't buy more than 12 pieces.
Okay.
And interestingly, before that, folks used to only buy, say, 3 or 2 pieces. So it never went overboard either way. But
Right.
when people read this element, they
Hmm.
got this notion in their mind that, okay, this is high demand
Hmm.
and I can only buy 12. So let me buy as much as I can. So
Wow.
the entire psychology here, which is about building scarcity.
Right.
So the whole thing of simplicity to scarcity, the communication is very simple,
Yeah.
but they're creating the demand of scarcity, saying that you can only buy 12, and you saw sales going up because folks started buying, considering that, okay, I'm going to miss out on this opportunity.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting.
That's what B2B, if you look at the landing page for the checkout options, you obviously have 3 different elements of pricing,
Yes.
and invariably pick the one in between, or one on the extreme right, because it's priced in such a way that
Yeah.
psychologically you get maximum value, but
Hmm.
you end up picking up which is the highest option available. But there is a lot more value that's been provided.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a whole science behind that for sure. Okay, this has gotten a little heavy. Let's tone this down with a rapid fire.
Yeah.
Uh, like Karan Johar, no coffee baskets. Happy to take you out for a cup of coffee someday.
I'll send you my bank account details.
Alrighty. Okay, so I want you to not overthink this. Okay, just be.
I'm
Just
very
be.
bad at it. In fact, it's one of the first times, so I'm slightly nervous as well.
I was nervous having you on my show, so you can't be nervous, sir. But seriously, this is just fun. There's no psychoanalysis happening here.
Sure.
Just throwing some words at you. Okay, first one for you. Child.
Child, my daughter.
What's her name?
Priyanshi.
Priyanshi. Okay, so the first one is Priyanshi. Work.
LinkedIn.
Okay, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Very
LinkedIn.
interesting. So, of all this rich journey that you've had, that's the thing that stuck.
Yeah, it's. I think my experience with LinkedIn has been just amazing. I have changed as a person, not just. I'm not talking just professionally from a work standpoint, but the culture here is so strong. It's always the conversations internally is always about upskilling. What best can I? How can I get the best out of myself? How can I coach people? But also talking about inclusion, conversations about ensuring you're doing something more for others. That's something that I've learned a lot more. So hands down, with all the brands that I've worked, this is a great organization. And I'm very grateful.
That's really nice to know. I think there is, I don't know, personally, for me, there's a certain affinity I have for LinkedIn. LinkedIn is single-handedly responsible for getting me the opportunity to speak at Harvard University. I don't know if I ever told you this.
No, you didn't tell me this. This is great.
Yeah,
When did that happen?
Harvard, 2019. 2018, they basically reached out to me to invite me as a panelist, subject matter expert, quote unquote, for a panel discussion at Harvard University, US. And believe me, the first time I got it, I was like, hey, wow, this must be some hoax, the level of self-doubt you wouldn't believe.
I understand that. But this is amazing, and that's the power of.
Yes, it is. Yes.
And the opportunity to put yourself out there.
Yes.
And
And the interesting thing is, when I asked them, why me? Their answer was, when we searched on LinkedIn for a social media expert in Asia, yours was the first name to come up. So clearly you're doing something right and we want to know what you're doing. So that was how I got into it. And LinkedIn certainly is very dear to me. Any social media platform you talk to me, I'll always put LinkedIn above everything else.
True, yeah, it has reformed, it has changed people's life for good. And in today's world, connections is everything. And I say, talk about very often, saying that your network is your net worth.
Yes.
So the stronger and a better network that you create for yourself.
Yeah. In fact, I think LinkedIn has become a lot more agile. It used to be very straitjacketed. So I love the agility, which, by the way, is my next word, agility.
I think startup, and probably what I would say this is something that I learned when COVID took over. And we were having conversations with a lot of companies which were in the SMB space. So they had developed, their products and things were fine. And now COVID happened, so now what to do?
Right.
And I was also having conversations with a lot of startups which had a certain solution then. But with this entire change that took over overnight, and that's also happening now, and I don't know what else is in store for us in future. But as a business leader, more agile you are in your thought process, you understand where all there are opportunities with the current need of the hour.
Yeah.
You will survive. And I've seen some startups doing it really well. And and that's a learning for each one of us. You're talking about ChatGPT, copywriters would be wondering, oh, what will happen to my job?
Yeah.
Right. But the way we look at it is, it is an innovation. Try to leverage it to your own good and see what more can be associated around it, and create and work things around that factor.
You bang on, because in the community, we have a very small WhatsApp community, not very small anymore, a community of B2B marketers on WhatsApp.
Wow.
And I think the most energetic discussion we've had on that community was around, will ChatGPT steal more jobs or kick in more jobs, or how it's going to be. So you're absolutely right. That's certainly a big concern. And happy to hear that agility is the answer in your eyes. One last rapid fire question for you. Content marketing.
Content marketing, I would say innovation and creativity and customer segmentation. And what I meant here is your content, and if I have to put this across in the B2B world, your content is going to look the same, right? You probably have one person, or you not have a person. You probably have some colors, which is your brand, that colors. But can we think of doing something very differently?
Yeah.
And we internally used to have this conversation. This is some time back when Infosys came up with this entire cartoon-led creative, where you have these huge data centers and there are two mice, biting over the wires, and then and if I'm not able to recollect that one line punchline saying that, are you losing the revenue because of certain processes? We are here to help you, right? And that sticks to the minds of consumers because it's different, it's innovative. Now, Duly, which is a brand that does a lot more on sales software, it's a competition to Kong. They have very interesting creatives about this one kid who's crying, and then there are 5-6 different interruptions that they have, and talking about how a sales rep today has so many challenges internally. How will he go and sell outside to his customers? So you need to solve problems within yourself. So I think that on the content creation space, if we can work on and get creativity and innovation in a right way, you would have higher recall. You would see a larger or better engagement on the platform. People will start sharing it because they find it funny, or they find it very informative, or find it interesting. And when I talk about customer segmentation, it's also very important that we ensure your creative can't be the same for everyone. So if I'm going to have a conversation with you, you are an entrepreneur, C-suite audience, the content that I share with you versus somebody else will be very different. So in your entire content strategy mix, it's very important that you identify certain pockets and then serve them in a very specific way.
Makes sense. Complete sense, in fact. Okay. I think we're coming closer towards the end of our show. So there are a couple of last questions, if I may. I know that you have a hard stop and I have an eye on the clock, so I'm going to keep that for you. But what have I not asked you? Let me reword that. What should Benita have asked Deepu Nair?
Well, that's a tough one. I think we covered a lot of these topics. Probably something more on thought leadership, discussions around that. And I know you do things there pretty well. You have a great clientele, and we have had conversations on how thought leadership can be worked on. So something around it. And I feel executive presence is absolutely important today. Leveraging that social proof which comes with you and your organization is absolutely important.
Yes. On this, in fact, I would also want to get your take on, would LinkedIn frown upon the accounts of thought leaders being managed by agencies? So far, we are consultants to multiple top management people across various segments. And I want to understand if that's something that LinkedIn would disapprove of.
Well, very senior folks will have a team who handle their social media handles. Yeah. So we understand they don't have the time, and they've given that responsibility to somebody. So, but when I say responsibility, anything going to the handle, that person is responsible for it. So I think as long as it's in sync with the owner of the account, and that conversation is led up by a third party, or there's an overviewing process, I don't see a challenge unless somebody reports it to say that, listen, my account is in trouble. Yeah.
Okay, that's really fantastic to know, because I think that's one of the biggest objections we face on, would LinkedIn ban my account if I outsource it to you? For now, my answer is that, look, you're not outsourcing the whole piece to me. The thinking part is still yours. It's on you to provide us the inputs, because no matter how much we work hard, we will not have the experience pool that you have. So you must provide us the expertise, and we will help you do what we are good at, which is to articulate your thoughts for you and run them on LinkedIn in a manner that's consumable for your target audience. Because I have seen some people who are brilliant otherwise ramble on their LinkedIn. That just doesn't take them anywhere. So that's just, for now, my answer. But I'm very happy to know that this pseudo endorsement, that it's perfectly fine for people to.
LinkedIn has been now the most trusted platform consecutively in the last few years, and we're very strict with privacy policies and content that is on the platform, and ensuring you also look at this 2 levels of authentication that comes by when we log in onto on LinkedIn. So as long as that individual is given rights for you to put content and is running through you, I don't see a challenge. So even our algorithms are in such a way that if you our teams are so actively there on the platform to see if even the content which is not right in any way is either reported by folks around on the platform, or there's another team who screens it. So that's something which I'm very proud of our team.
Yeah, and you must be. You guys have done some fabulous work there.
Yeah.
So one last question, and it's literally there in the name of my show, so I've got to ask you, what is the one secret you can share which could lead to a success for B2B marketers?
One secret, I would say, sorry, I'm going to give a slightly longish answer. I will not have one secret as such. Probably what I would say is we need to have a mix in our strategy, and that could be the secret of a B2B marketer. When I say mix, it's about, we spoke about using customer segmentation wisely. We spoke about how do we leverage AI effectively, using the right tools to ensure we get time and then use it to our benefit. I think to embrace video marketing, that is getting really big. Leveraging your executive presence, investing in employee advocacy. I think that's something which overall can give that attraction, and probably utilizing events, utilizing events or event marketing in the right way. Put all of them together, get a nice shake, and your secret cocktail is ready.
You did a part of my job, which was to summarize this whole conversation. Beautifully done that for me already. So I'm not going to repeat all of that because you've done a fabulous job at that. But if our listeners want more of Deepu Nair, more of your thoughts, more of your opinions, more of your help, where can they reach you?
Connect me on LinkedIn. You can search for me, Deepu Nair. I also have an official Instagram page. It's Deepu_official. You can search for me there, and let's stay connected.
Okay, that's lovely. I'm going to lean heavily on this option and reach out to you a lot more, and keep seeking your opinion and help a lot more.
Sure.
I think you've been very, very gracious, not just with your time, but also with your knowledge. Can't thank you enough. I honestly, genuinely can't thank you enough. I feel this whole conversation was so rich and so full of actual meat that people could take back and start working on. Because sadly, when it comes to B2B marketing, there is a lot of theory out there and very little of a sense that one can take back to work. So I think I absolutely loved our conversation, and so I wanted to very, very profoundly thank you for it. And I hope we have opportunities to have more conversations with you. I have an inkling that following this podcast, we might get more queries from people who might want us to bring you back. Would you be open to that?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, thank you so much for having me over to your show. I thoroughly enjoyed having this conversation with you as well. Doesn't at any point in time looks like it's your first podcast. You are professional. You asked some fantastic questions, and I loved my time here. So I'm grateful to be here today talking to you. Thank you for having me over. And yes, if there are any questions, I'm happy to take questions from the listeners about the next time. Yes, you could invite me, and I'd love to come back if required.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.